My sister agreed to my son's birthday after her wedding, then destroyed it with a fake invoice and chicken nuggets. About a year ago, my sister, 33F, sent out her save the dates for her wedding. I'm 41F, and I live across the country from most of our extended family.
So does she.
The wedding was scheduled for a few days before my son's 18th birthday. Now, my son is an only child, and since we live pretty far from most relatives, he's never had a big family celebration for his birthday. Most years it's just been me, a couple of close friends, maybe a dinner out or something low-key. When I realized the timing of the wedding, I had an idea. Since a lot of our scattered family would already be gathered for her wedding, I asked my sister if she'd be okay with us hosting a small gathering the day after her wedding. She had already planned a morning after brunch, so I made it clear we would plan our celebration in the afternoon, at a completely different venue. I absolutely didn't want to take away from her big moment, or crowd the wedding space or timeline. To my surprise, she was thrilled with the idea. She said it was sweet and thoughtful, and she loved that my son could finally be celebrated with more of the family around. I cleared it with my son too. He was totally fine celebrating with family a few days before his actual birthday, and then doing something more low-key with his friends on the actual day. Win-win all around. Fast forward to 6 months ago, when the official wedding invitations arrived. I RSVP'd for both myself and my son. There were 2 dinner options, beef or fish. I selected beef for both of us. My son has a decent appetite and is almost 18. There was never any mention of children's meals being served, nor was there any prompt on the RSVP asking if any guests were under a certain age. So, we fly in for the wedding. Everything goes smoothly. The ceremony was lovely, the venue beautiful. I was genuinely happy for my sister. But then we get to the reception. As the meals start coming out, a server places a plate in front of my son, and it's chicken nuggets and steak fries. A literal children's meal. I thought, what? There must be a mistake. So, I politely flagged the server and explained that I had RSVP'd for 2 beef dinners, not a kid's meal. The server checked, said no problem, and came back less than 2 minutes later with the correct beef entree for him. No drama, no attitude from the staff. It was a quick and easy fix. But apparently, that wasn't the end of it. Later in the evening, my sister pulled me aside and told me that I had embarrassed her by making a scene over the dinner. I was genuinely confused. There was no scene. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't argue. I just corrected an error. But she was upset. She said my son was technically still a minor, and that kids were getting the kids' meal. I reminded her again that he's turning 18 in a few days and that I had clearly selected 2 beef entrees on the RSVP form. Then, in a pretty icy tone, she told me that I'd made her feel like I was trying to take over her wedding weekend by throwing my son's party the next day and now demanding special meals. I was floored. I reminded her that she had agreed to the birthday event months ago, even said she liked the idea, and I specifically made sure it was separate from any wedding activity. As for the meal, I didn't ask for anything special. I just wanted what I RSVP'd for. The whole conversation left me feeling deflated. I had been so careful to be respectful of her big day. I genuinely thought we were on the same page. I would never intentionally try to overshadow her wedding. But now I'm being painted like I'm selfish or made things about me. I talked to a few family members afterward and reactions were mixed. Some said I did nothing wrong and that a nearly 18-year-old shouldn't be served nuggets. Others said I should have just let it go, not made waves, and accepted the meal quietly to avoid any tension at the reception. Honestly, I don't know. I keep replaying it in my head and second-guessing everything. Was I out of line for speaking up? Should I have just let my son eat a plate of nuggets so my sister wouldn't feel slighted? Because to me, it wasn't about being difficult. It was about the principle. He's not a little kid, and I submitted the RSVP correctly. It felt more disrespectful to not correct it. For context, this wasn't a child-free wedding. There were maybe 5 kids there, ranging in age from about 4 to 9. My son is 17, he's 6 feet 1 inch, has facial hair, and just applied to colleges. He is very much not in the chicken nuggets and crayons demographic. Anyway, the wedding reception passed, and I truly thought we had moved on from the weird dinner switch. The server had fixed it, my son got his meal, and he didn't even complain. He was polite and quiet the whole evening, just happy to be included. We didn't make a fuss. We even stayed late and helped clean up a few things. Then came the post-wedding brunch the next morning. The atmosphere was weird.
Tense.
I chalked it up to everyone being tired or hungover, but it became clearer over the next hour that my sister was deliberately avoiding me. She barely acknowledged my son. When she did speak to me, Her tone was clipped.
Cold.
I started to feel uneasy, like maybe something had gone seriously wrong and no one had clued me in. As things were wrapping up, I gently pulled her aside and asked if she was still planning to come to my son's birthday celebration that afternoon. I said I'd noticed she seemed upset and just wanted to check in. That's when she whipped out a folded piece of paper from her bag and handed it to me without a word. I unfolded it, and it was an invoice. A literal invoice, typed and printed on paper for $77.50, with a note. Extra adult dinner charge for unexpected meal for son's name. I stared at it, completely baffled. I asked what this was about. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You RSVP'd for him as a child. He was supposed to get a kid's meal. The caterer charged us for an extra adult dinner when you made the staff change it. So you owe me." At that moment, something just broke in me. I said, "No, I did not RSVP for a child. I selected 2 beef dinners in writing 6 months ago. No one ever told me kids were expected to have a different option or that I needed to note his age." I pointed out that he's nearly an adult and that 4 chicken nuggets and a few fries wouldn't feed a toddler, let alone a high school senior. She rolled her eyes and said, "Well, maybe you should have just let it go for one night instead of making it about you and your kid." I reminded her, again, that she enthusiastically agreed to the birthday party when I first brought it up, and that I deliberately scheduled it after all wedding events at a different venue to respect her space. I also reminded her that if there was a cost issue, she could have just talked to me like a normal person, not waited until the morning of my son's celebration to spring a bill on me. At that point, it turned into a full-blown scene. She started crying, not quietly, and suddenly people were watching us. Her new husband came over, our cousins, an aunt or two, and boom, sides were taken. I became the villain for ruining her brunch and taking attention away from the bride. And then came the kicker. She told our mom that she didn't feel safe coming to my son's celebration because I had disrespected her boundaries. Our mom, bless her spine of jello, decided to skip the party to support the bride in her time of emotional distress. So that afternoon, my son's long-awaited birthday celebration, his first ever with extended family, was a total flop. Almost no one came. The tables I reserved sat mostly empty. The cake went mostly uneaten. My son tried to put on a brave face, but I could tell he was crushed. He kept saying it was fine, that he knew it wasn't my fault, but no teenager should have to console their parent because their birthday celebration was boycotted over wedding chicken nuggets. And honestly, I am so tired of being made out to be unreasonable. I'm being told by multiple family members that I should have just let him eat the nuggets and taken him to McDonald's later. That I should have known better than to schedule anything during wedding weekend. That I shouldn't have argued about the invoice, because $77 isn't a hill to die on. But to me, it's not about the $77. It's about the principle. It's about the fact that my sister greenlit this whole idea months ago and then rewrote the story to make me the villain. That my son was treated like an afterthought, served a preschooler's meal, excluded from his own family celebration, and made to feel like a burden on his aunt's special weekend. He didn't deserve that. He didn't do anything wrong. He didn't even say a word about the food until I noticed what he'd been given. He was respectful, gracious, and supportive the whole time. But apparently, that wasn't enough to escape being collateral damage in my sister's wedding princess fantasy.
So yeah.
The birthday party was ruined. My son smiled through it anyway, and I drove us back to the hotel that night, quiet in the car, just thinking, how did it get to this? Was I really that out of line? Is the message here truly, your kid doesn't matter during someone else's wedding weekend? Because if that's the case, I'm done trying to make peace. Of course it was planned. I should have seen it coming. After everything that happened, the birthday party boycott, the invoice, the whispers behind my back, I tried to convince myself it was all just a misunderstanding. That maybe emotions were running high, that my sister was just being dramatic in the aftermath of her wedding, and that surely this wasn't some orchestrated scheme to sabotage my son's birthday. But it was. It absolutely was. A few days after the disaster that was my son's celebration, I was sitting at the kitchen table, just kind of mentally replaying everything, and I looked at that ridiculous invoice again. You know, the one she handed me so coldly at the brunch, with that smug little flourish, like she'd just served me a subpoena instead of a passive-aggressive guilt trip. And that's when I noticed something.
The ink.
It bled slightly. Just a little bit of red shadowing the black text, the kind of thing you wouldn't even catch unless you were staring at it under direct light.
But my son did.
He glanced at it and said, "Hey, doesn't this look like something Grandma's printer would spit out?" You know, that one where everything comes out kind of pinkish. And my stomach dropped. Because he was right. It was her printer. I've seen it 1,000 times. I helped her troubleshoot that thing so many times that I can recognize its printing flaws like a fingerprint. So not only was this invoice not something my sister hastily typed up in the heat of post-wedding rage, it wasn't even printed at the hotel. Or at the venue. It was printed before the wedding even happened. At my mom's house. Which means it was all planned. This wasn't about a dinner mix-up. This wasn't about a $77 meal. This was about control. It was about ownership of the entire weekend. My sister got Friday, rehearsal and dinner. She got Saturday, the ceremony and reception. But apparently that still wasn't enough. She needed Sunday, too. Because heaven forbid the spotlight shift from her to anyone else, even for a couple of hours, even for a teenage boy hitting a milestone birthday. She said yes to the idea of his party, smiling, supportive, even excited, and then decided she didn't want to share her weekend anymore. And instead of coming to me like an adult and saying, "Hey, I've changed my mind, can we do this another time?" she and our mother cooked up a plan to ruin it. I can't begin to describe the rage and heartbreak that realization stirred in me. I gave them both so much credit. After years of rocky history with my mom, I genuinely believed we'd turned a corner. The last 5 years had been peaceful, close even. She started calling more, asking how my son was doing, making plans with us for holidays. I let myself believe we were healing. But apparently, that was conditional. Conditional on me staying in my place. Conditional on my son, and I never taking up too much space or attention. Conditional on my loyalty to the narrative that my sister is the golden child, and I'm the spare wheel. I called my mom the next day, shaking. I asked her directly, "Did you help make that invoice before the wedding?" There was a pause. Then, in the same soft, condescending tone she's always used when I don't play by the script, she said, "It was your sister's wedding. All the attention should have been on her anyway." That was it. No apology. No attempt to explain. Just that, your sister is the star. Your son is the extra. Stay in your lane. It gutted me. My son, God love him, had been trying so hard to act like he wasn't hurt by what happened. But when he heard that, when I told him what she said, he just nodded and said, "I don't want to see them again. I don't need them in my life." And honestly,
He's right.
he didn't deserve what they did. He's been nothing but respectful and kind. He's never asked for big gifts or family parties or special attention. He was happy to share his birthday with their wedding weekend because it meant finally being with family, people he rarely sees, people he wanted to bond with. And they turned on him. Not because he did anything wrong, but because he was there. Because he mattered. Because he had the audacity to be seen. I'm still processing it all. The betrayal. The childishness. The way they twisted everything to make me the villain when all I did was ask for one tiny corner of the weekend to make my son feel loved. And now I'm questioning everything. Every conversation I've had with my mom over the past few years. Every time I thought she was finally seeing me. Every birthday. Every holiday. Every time she said, "I'm proud of you," and I clung to it like a lifeline. I thought I had made progress. I thought things had changed. But when the chips were down, she picked her favorite daughter and helped her humiliate me and my child. For no reason other than petty jealousy and a warped need for control. So now, I'm done. Done chasing people who will never see us as enough. Done making excuses for grown women who treat others like pawns in their drama. Done pretending blood automatically equals loyalty. My son and I have each other. That's more than enough. And moving forward, we're building a life full of people who show up, not people who tear others down to keep the spotlight. Let my sister keep her fairy tale. Let my mom keep playing queen mother to her princess. We're done playing supporting roles in their performance.